On the night of May 10, 1941, a lone German aircraft crossed into British airspace. Inside was not a spy, not a soldier, but the second most powerful man in Nazi Germany. Rudolf Hess, Hitler's own deputy, had flown straight into enemy territory. Alone. Uninvited. And to this day, nobody fully knows why. Since April 1933, Rudolf Hess served as Deputy Führer, standing directly beside Adolf Hitler. As a Reich minister without portfolio, a member of the Secret Cabinet Council, and a representative on the Council of Ministers for the Defense of the Reich, Hess held direct influence over civil service appointments and wartime legislation. He was the ultimate administrative insider, operating at the absolute center of a totalitarian state built on rigid obedience and a strict chain of command. For a leader of this stature to act alone shattered every rule of Nazi discipline. On May 10, 1941, at the Augsburg-Hohenstetten airfield, Hess stepped onto the tarmac. For months, he had secretly prepared, gathering meteorological briefings and modifying a twin-engine Messerschmitt Bf 110 for long-range flight. This was no routine military assignment. Hess climbed into the cockpit of the fighter, carrying the serial letters VJOQ, and took off into the sky. The Luftwaffe unit log recorded the unscheduled departure with a stark notation: unauthorized flight to the west, radio silence ordered. By taking off without the knowledge of Adolf Hitler or the High Command, the Deputy Führer deliberately severed himself from the rigid German chain of command. He flew northwest toward the North Sea, leaving behind his offices, his family, and the regime he helped build. He had stepped entirely outside the Nazi power structure, piloting a stolen aircraft toward an enemy nation with no official orders and no turning back. The modified Messerschmitt Bf 110 crossed the dark waters of the North Sea in complete radio silence. At 21:57 GMT on May 10, 1941, operators at the RAAF Chain Home Radar Station in Dundonald detected an unidentified blip. It was Hess, flying at 5,000 feet and heading directly into British airspace. This was an unprecedented breach. The Deputy Führer of Nazi Germany piloting a twin-engine fighter alone deep into enemy territory. As the aircraft pressed onward toward the Scottish coast, its fuel tanks rapidly emptied. With every mile, the sheer impossibility of the mission intensified, transforming a bizarre secret flight into an imminent, high-stakes crisis. With his fuel exhausted, Hess climbed the Messerschmitt to 6,000 feet and parachuted into the night, landing near Flores Farm in Eaglesham at 23:06 GMT. His fighter plane slammed into the Scottish countryside moments later. Local farmer David McLean discovered the dazed pilot and offered him tea, unaware he was harboring the Deputy Führer, who claimed to be Captain Alfred Horn. By 0014 GMT on May 11th, the Renfrewshire Constabulary arrived to secure the prisoner. The improbable flight was over, but the true enigma of why he came was only just beginning. 2 days later, Berlin broke its silence. Adolf Hitler publicly stripped his deputy of all offices and declared Hess had been suffering from progressive mental illness. The announcement served as a swift exercise in damage control, designed to distance the Reich from the fallout. In London, Winston Churchill maintained a calculated public indifference, treating the captive as a potential source of intelligence rather than a diplomat. While the leading explanation remains a failed, rogue peace mission to negotiate an alliance, the official statements from both capitals transformed the flight into a propaganda battle. Hess spent 46 years in captivity, eventually becoming the sole occupant of West Berlin's imposing Spandau prison. As the decades wore on, the Allied powers rotated guards around a single aging man, a living relic of a collapsed regime. His prolonged isolation stretched across generations, keeping the bizarre details of his flight suspended in public memory. When he was found dead in his cell on August 17, 1987, at the age of 93, the event did not resolve the mystery. Instead, his death reignited the conspiracy theories, ensuring he would never fully disappear from history. The key to Rudolf Hess's flight lay locked in British archives. For decades, the British government kept critical files sealed, far beyond the standard 30-year rule. This official secrecy transformed a bizarre historical event into an enduring mystery. While the selective release of MY5 dossier KV-235 and Foreign Office records under file F0371 revealed detailed interrogation transcripts, they offered no smoking gun. The declassified files clarify the timeline of his arrival but leave his true motive open to interpretation. Rather than providing a neat conclusion, these primary sources invite researchers to weigh the evidence themselves, keeping the ultimate truth of the flight unresolved. Today, the ultimate truth remains locked in the shadows of state secrecy. Until every file is opened, history remains incomplete. What do you think happened? Share below.